The Greater Yellowstone area is a large wild place, and grizzly bear epitomizes wild places.
If you ask an average visitor to the area, whether it's on the national forest or whether it's in the national parks, I think a lot of them have a desire to see wildlife, and one of the prime species that they want to see are bears, and particularly grizzly bears.
We know more about the Yellowstone grizzly bear and its habitat than we know about any bear population anywhere in the world.
When I started working in Yellowstone 30 years ago, it was pretty rare to see a bear, even though I was working with bears and spending a lot of time in the backcountry. If I saw a dozen bears in the backcountry in the summer, that was a pretty good summer. Now I can easily see a dozen bears in one morning right from a road.
I think clearly the bear population has recovered. The science that's gone into monitoring recovery and the estimates of the population is some of the best in the world.
With the Interagency Grizzly Bear Study Team as kind of the leader on the research aspect of things. We estimate population size on an annual basis, and that's primarily done by monitoring the number of females that have cubs of the year with them.
And in addition, we monitor the health of the individual bears. We monitor their fat levels. We monitor them with GPS radio collars, so we get hourly locations on them 24 hours a day.
17.
All these new technologies are available to us today that were not available to us 30 years ago. So we have a much finer level of resolution about the health of individual bears and the health of the population.
We have very high density of bears, and the population seems to be doing very well.
Recovery involves a couple things. It involves the status of the population, of course, and how the bears are doing in terms of population health. And it also involves what kind of protections are in place. So can we be sure that the bears are going to remain healthy and that their habitat is going to remain secure? And under both categories, the health of the population and the management systems and protections in place, we can classify the grizzly bear as recovered today.
All the targets that have been set through the years have been met and are being continually met over the last number of years.
We see expansion of populations today into places where grizzlies haven't been for 100 years.
Idaho believes that the grizzly bear population in the Yellowstone ecosystem has recovered. Now the bears are moving outside of the recovery area onto lands that are either state lands or in many cases private lands, or federal lands that have livestock operations or recreational activities on them.
We're constantly working with our cooperating agencies to try to make sure that what actions we're taking out there are going to work with keeping the bear recovered. And that's from our grazing permits, outfitter and guides.
The BLM feels like the Yellowstone grizzly bear population is healthy and stable. Our ability to work across those jurisdictional lines with all the partners, I think, has contributed significantly to the health and sustainability of this population.
The Endangered Species Act was not designed to keep wildlife species, plant species in an ongoing imperiled state. It's essential to meet the intent of the Endangered Species Act that we create circumstances where we have a recovered population and a conserved population of bears in the long run.
We need to walk a fine balancing act between removing grizzly bears due to conflict situations versus taking no action at all and allowing the bear population to grow unchecked. It will become our position as delisting approaches and occurs to continue to manage that bear for the good of all of the publics interested in that animal, from livestock producers who suffer conflicts and losses of their stock, to folks that really value the grizzly bear on the landscape, like to photograph them and see them in the wild.
Grizzly bears are an omnivore generalist, so I think almost any environmental change, grizzly bears are very well adapted to cope with. They eat a lot of different species, things like climate change, and I believe grizzly bears can cope with.
I have no doubt that the species is so adaptable that, you know, it will do very well. The threat to it, though, I think, is a social acceptance.
The expanding human population with the expanding wildlife population and the overlap of those, that's the number one thing I think that we're going to have to be very thoughtful and approach very carefully as we make decisions with the grizzly bear population, because both of those are happening.
There will be places where bears can thrive and places where they can't, where they're consistently getting in conflict. It's always going to be a challenge working with the public as that expansion happens and that change happens, making sure that we're responsive to the needs of the human beings that are living there and not putting them in jeopardy, either in terms of their safety or their livelihood or really their recreation opportunity.
People, when they live, work, and recreate in the backcountry, they think of bears, you know, they don't leave piles of garbage in the backcountry. They secure their game meat carefully.
It seems to me that if you can recover an animal whose habitat needs are so great and so diverse in the middle of increasing human pressures across the North American continent, it really says a lot about people's willingness to adjust what they do to recover a species that's been listed as a federally endangered species.
The Yellowstone grizzly bear population is in excellent health. It's important to realize that after recovery and delisting, the intensive science efforts will continue. And we'll continue to carefully monitor the bears and their health. So we'll have our hand on the pulse of the population, and we'll know immediately if there are problems. And then the managers can respond as necessary.
We should treasure things like this. It's got a tremendous intrinsic value, it's got tremendous economic value. I think that that's the reason that the American public has supported the great effort it's taken to conserve the Yellowstone grizzly bear, and that they'll be willing to do that in the future.
There were a lot of difficult decisions made in the last 30 years. But the managers and the agencies struggled through that, and in the end, I think we're very successful in building something that allows this population of grizzly bears to be sustained into the future.
I really believe that the population biologically is recovered and could be removed from threatened species status.
It kind of makes you feel good that it's truly a success story. The grizzly bear recovery is truly one of the great success stories in wildlife management in North America.